Hello everyone. Okay, I'll wait a few more minutes to start. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you can hear me clearly because I don't want to use the headphones. Is my voice clear enough? Perfect. So, hello again. So, I wanted to say good afternoon, but I noticed a few familiar names from Iran. So, actually, it's 10:30 p.m. right there. So, I would want to say good night and good afternoon. So, because of this pandemic situation, we are all kind of live and under virtual times together. My dog wants to get in my studio. I closed the door, so she may start barking or something. I will let her in later. And my name is Elham, for most of you that might not know me. I want to give you a quick tour towards my home studio, or it's better to say to my studio corner. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Art Etobicoke to giving me this opportunity, this platform, virtual promotional event. It's something very valuable for me, especially during this pandemic situation that most of us are in our home isolation and we are not gathering with our friends. Specifically for the artists, it's something very valuable for me because I believe we all miss our social life and our gatherings. So there are some questions from Art Etobicoke that I'm going to go through them after my introduction of my pieces to you, and I will give you a quick tour towards my art corner because it's a small corner that is my den that I eventually managed to clean it up and turn it to kind of a home studio. Thank you, Akshata, for having me. Thank you very much. So honestly, I have never worked that much from home, especially from my this special corner. The last 2 years, I have been working towards my master's degree at York University, and we had a good access to private studios and good facilities. So mostly I have been working at the York campus in my private studio, and it was a beautiful space. We could make a mess because I love to work on big pieces, and of course the splash of paints would go everywhere, but it's kind of not very manageable to work from home, especially if you live in a small condo. And I think that OCD part of me kind of overcome my artistic desire, so I try to keep everything organized and in a good order and clean. But recently I have been working on my recent ongoing project, which I call it homemade satellite dishes. And I think the concept of this series is really close to this situation because this series is about censorship and communication, especially censorship in the domestic sphere. And this is something that I really find relevant in this situation, especially when we talk about censorship. I mean the self-censorship. So we are all in our domestic spheres and trying to show something sometimes different from what we are really, especially in the social media. For my homemade satellite dishes, I usually collect the used satellite dishes from around the town and use them as my canvas because my background is painting and drawing, so I would love to paint on everything. And then now I'm using these satellite dishes as my canvases. I usually mimic the pattern of the scarves and or carpets that I have to kind of camouflage them between the domestic objects that I have in home. So right now I'm working on 2 pieces that I'm going to show you after giving you some brief information about them. So I paint the pattern on a scarf or a carpet or whatever I have at home on my dishes. So literally now they are again homemade dishes, and then I would display them with the object that I use the pattern as a background, so it would be looked camouflaged. Currently I have 3 of them still on display at AGYU, the art gallery of York University, but literally I'm just spending all my times at home, so this is the project that mostly I'm working on. Also because I love painting, but as I say, I love to work on the big pieces, like the life-size figurative pieces, but it's honestly, it's not manageable in a condo, and I don't want it to have like paint splash everywhere. So I kind of switched to the smaller pieces. So now I'm working with my matte watercolors, and I love Persian miniatures painting. So I kind of transferred to the small painting again. So I'm working on very small pieces, sometimes like 2 or 3 inches with watercolor. It's more manageable. I have a small desk, so I can work on them. And then for the first week of the pandemics, most of the like art stores are closed, right? So, and they didn't accept online ordering, and most of my materials were in my studio, and the whole building was locked down. So I was just kind of worried that where I'm going to paint and what can I get. So I start painting on different objects such as leaves or stones. And I live in the Etobicoke area, so I know Art Etobicoke through one of my good friends, Itag, so she introduced me to them, and thanks for this opportunity again. And it's like close to the lake shore. That's why every day I go for a walk, especially like this is the best thing I can do during this time, except my art practice, which keep me alive. I go for long walks with my dog. That's how I spend like 3 or 4 hours a day. And I collected small driftwood, a small flat surface rocks, and a small piece of like maybe even leaves or whatever I can find. And then I try to paint on them. Let me just show you some of the works that I'm kind of working on them. I have to switch the camera to the other side. Okay, so this is the corner that I'm working on right now. This piece is the satellite dish that I was talking about. Okay. Sorry for the noise. So these are the actually local channel satellite dishes. As you see, I collect the smaller ones because these dishes are used to work to receive the local channel. So that's why I can relate them to the domestic spheres. This is another piece. So I collect some scarves. So like this scarf is a Turkmen scarf that I obtained it from my last visit to Iran. There's a small village close to border of Iran and Turkmenistan. So these are the traditional scarves that the Turkmen women wear. Although for like Iranian is a very familiar pattern, but also it's kind of, I can say it's not just related to Iran or Middle East. It's a scarf that, and also the floral pattern, that is something very popular, of course, between the women. So I paint the pattern of the scarf on my satellite dishes with acrylic, and after I finish the painting on the surface of the like metal, I would attach the LMB and all the materials, so it would look like the real dish. Actually, I was thinking to make this dish functional. I can install it in my balcony towards the CN Tower, and I hope that I can receive some signals. And as I said, my thesis was about communication and different terms of communication, media, and also censorship. So that's how I'm relating into my older practice as well. And another small pieces that I'm working on them these days are my Persian miniatures design. This one is a pattern of the Shamse, or the Oriental designs that you can see mostly in Islamic architecture and Middle Eastern architecture and pattern. So that was the cedar wood that I painted with the watercolors as like one layer, and then I draw the pattern of the design as you see closely with watercolor. So it's something very meditative for me, these kind of mandala patterns as well. So that's how I spend like hours without noticing a time and enjoying it. And these are my tiny brushes. As you see, they're so little. These are the miniatures brushes that I use for my miniatures, and I mostly work with watercolors for my miniature painting. This is the one that I'm using currently. And then beside that, as I said, I have collected some leaves, and I want to paint on them. I'm just trying to like discover different materials in my artistic practice, and then I'll show you some of the recent watercolors that I'm working on these days. So these are the recent pieces that I'm working on, and let's switch the camera again. Also, last week was supposed to be my thesis exhibition for my MFA at York, but because of the pandemic, everything is postponed, of course, until further notice. And it was kind of a disappointing situation for me. And also, I was so excited to display my videos because I've never displayed them before. So I decided to screen them for myself on the window blinds. So I cover all the windows, and I have a small projector, and I assemble everything on top of each other, like a chair and like a table and everything. So I made a platform to set up my projector, and because my blinds are like double layered, I was sure that nobody can see them. Of course there was something public, but I thought I am in my domestic sphere and I'm reviewing my works on my windows. And then when I went to balcony to check on my dogs, I noticed, oh my God, a few of the neighbors on the other side on their balcony, they were watching it. And it was really funny for me because I didn't expect that everyone can see it. But then I noticed, oh, it's a part of the virtual artistic world that I didn't know that my pieces are kind of public, but people were watching them. Actually, I can show you the setup of my projector. Now it's kind of too light outside, so I don't think that we can watch the videos. Let me just go here. So this is the setup of my projector here, and then I had them on these two window blinds, and then I noticed the people on the balcony were like waving hands for me. That was funny, so maybe I can share some more works with them later. Let me just switch again. So it was a brief introduction about myself, and if you have any question for me, I will be so happy to answer that. And if not, I can go through the brief questions that the Art Etobicoke provided for me. Thank you, Aitak. Okay. So the questions was, how long you have been affiliated with Art Etobicoke? So as I mentioned, I have moved to Etobicoke about a year ago, and through one of my good friends, Aitak, that she's one of the active member of the Art Etobicoke, I get to know the Art Etobicoke, and me and Aitak usually see each other during our doggy walk, especially this situation, like during the pandemic. I'm mostly just hanging out outside with my friends who have dogs, so I spend like 2 or 3 hours a day walking my dogs. That's how I know Art Etobicoke. Actually, I know Aitak from before. She had a beautiful exhibition at Art Gallery, the ceramic show, so that's how I know her, and then I get connected to Art Etobicoke. And what is something people don't know about you? I think as an artist, maybe it's that sometimes I have the OCD of being clean and organized, and it's not easy, especially when you're working on the big pieces. So Aitak is asking, when do you show your video again? I would like to see. Thank you. I can show it anytime, but it will be very clear from the next door building. So I know some of the dog owners over there. Maybe we can go to their balcony and check it out. And yes, as I said, I really want to work in a clean and organized environment, so it's not easy to work in a small place and keep everything organized and nice, especially the big pieces. I really miss painting on large pieces, but as I said, I don't want to have that. I mean, I want to control everything, so when I have like the paints all over the place, it makes me like crazy. So that's why I kind of stopped working on big pieces. I will show you actually one of my pieces that I'm hiding in the closet back there. I tried to make my studio very nice and clean for today's visit, and I squeezed every big things here. It may fall on my head if I open it. Let's see. No, it survived. So this is like one of my big pieces that I have at home. As you see, it's not manageable to work on life-size pieces. It's kind of a self-portrait painting on a canvas, and I use the carpets as a collage. So that's why I know I cannot work on this series until I can move back to the studio, or I don't know, cover all the walls with a plastic or something, so I wouldn't make too much mess. And I'll go back to the list of the questions. And what do you do with your spare time when you are not creating art? As I said, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. I spend walking my dog, and yeah, and actually that's the only thing that keeps the positive spirit and the good vibe in me, like walking and being outside. And what is the go-to meal you make for guests? Well, honestly, I didn't have guests the last 2 months, but I love to make Persian foods, especially traditional stews. And during the last month, especially after the Iranian New Year, because we want to go and see each other and we were not supposed to because of the pandemic. So I kind of had a small food delivery for my close friends, and I would go to their porches and leave the food and just wave hands for them behind the balcony or the window. That's how I make food for the guests the last 2 months. And what is the most meaningful art experience? I can say teaching art was one of the most meaningful experiences I had as a part of my MFA degree. I had 2 courses to teach the last semester, one art history course and one painting course. And it was really an amazing opportunity for me, and working close to the students, especially in my field, which is painting. So I can say teaching art is one of the best experiences I have had, and I hope I can do it more, and I will apply for more teaching position hopefully after this situation. And I know like many of the classes are going to be online, but for painting I believe this is something that you need to be one by one, and you need to be in this space because you can feel and you can communicate and see each other. So this is something that I have missed, and I'm looking forward to go back to campus because I love art as an academic part of it too. I don't want to be like the staying at home or studio artist all the time. I love teaching and trying to passing that experience to others, and also it's like an art therapy for me. So this is something which is very valuable for me. Hi Sapide, so she has asked how the pandemic affected your thesis show. So our thesis show, they're all postponed, so hopefully they're not going to be cancelled, but they're going to be postponed until further notice. That we are hoping that it would be in September when this campus hopefully reopens. We don't know any like time or anything, but as I show my projector and the video art, I was trying to create that area for myself, especially last week, which was my defense day, and I was like sitting alone. My mom was supposed to come to Canada for my thesis and graduation, and I was so excited to have my family and friends gathering, and everything is on hold. So it was really disappointing, but at the same time, this is something that is happening to everyone. It's just not for me. That's why I've tried to stay positive and wait. And Paipuya, he's asking, during this pandemic, what drives you or inspires you to create? Honestly, I have been working on my my ongoing project, which was the homemade satellite dishes, because it was really related to pandemic, because usually my art is in response of what is happening around me, or what is like happening around the world, not specifically about myself. And a part of my pieces have always been autobiographical, so I'm working on the autobiographical section of my works. And also another inspiration is that I try to stay motive. So the only way I can stay positive and motive is with the colors. So it's like the magic of the colors. And sometimes I just don't paint anything specifically. I just play with the colors and mix them. As how I kind of stay alive. And yes, and I think the inspiration, I mean, another motivation for me is like what is going to happen after the pandemic. I'm trying to stay like productive and use this kind of free times that I have to produce more works and then apply for some art residency and for different shows. So I have some things that I have created during the pandemic, and it's related to this situation because, as I say, when I work with satellite dishes, it's about the communication and the theories of communication, and also what is like how like outside world is connected to our inside world. So the connection from the domestic sphere to the public sphere and the bridge between them, and it's something that I can relate it to my practice. And I have other question which said, is there a digital platform when we can see some of your work? Well, I have my website, which is my full name, and also my Instagram account, which is again my full name. I guess it should be a way that I can pin it here, or I can post it on the Art Etobicoke. I guess they have mentioned me. So I usually post the process of my work on my Instagram, and once in a while, maybe once a year, I would update my website. I should confess, my website it's so out of dated now. Sure, I should figure out how to pin it, but it's Elham Fatapour. I will figure out the way to pin it for sure. And I have two more other questions here. One more. Why do you think community arts are important? Well, honestly, community art, I mean, being in one community is important for everyone, but for the artist, especially if you're an immigrant artist, it has another value. Well, when I moved to Canada, I was not an artist. I'm still an art student, but I have a different background, so I decided to switch to art. And then I worked on my portfolio, and I didn't know any artists here. I didn't know any galleries, but I was very lucky to get a job at a commercial art gallery. So that was the first introduction to the art world. And then I met few artists, and through them, it was like a networking. I met more artists, and then I get connected to more like galleries and more artistic communities. So that's how I could survive, and actually that's how I will survive. I mean, without our network and the support our other artists and the galleries, like we are just so isolated. So we need to be seen and to produce, and we need to be like appreciated in the way that we are doing. So that's how I think art communities are really important. And I really appreciate all the supports that like Art Etobicoke or other art platforms are providing during this pandemic, like giving this platform, the virtual visits, the virtual studio times, and everything is something very valuable, and it's kind of connect us together, and we can create and develop this community better and better. So I have finished the question that I have here. So if there's other question for me, I'll be happy to answer, or if you want me to show anything, because I don't want to just talk. I'm here to answer some question and let you know about my practice if you have any question, please. And then meanwhile, I try to pin my website here as requested. No, I don't want to disconnect it, so I would do it later. But as I said, you can check my Instagram page on the Art Etobicoke website. I don't know, do you have any other questions for me? We still have a few more minutes. And I don't know what else you want me to show. Okay. Oh, hi Mark. Good to see you here. What kind of art do you like to collect for yourself? That's an interesting question. Nobody actually have asked me before, but recently I have started collecting art from my other artistic friend as a support, first of all, and also as an art trade, because I really appreciate art, and I can tell how much effort and love and passion people have put under them. So actually last month I have an exhibition at young place. So we were a group of like about 10 women artists, and I purchased 2 pieces from my other artistic pals in the show. And I love to have like the art trade, and because I'm a figurative and portraiture artist, but I know I'm not good in other, for like, as an example, I know I'm not an abstract artist, but I really appreciate the colors and the expression that other artists use. So I would love to collect the arts that are different from what my own practice, and also different mediums such as like sculptures or other installation arts. I have other questions that went back, and like iTag is asking, can you speak about your censorship work more, please? Yes. So the censorship works, the idea came from an article that I was reading for one of my courses, which was about invisible infrastructures and the importance of communications and media. And growing up in a country that media was so restricted back in Iran, the only way that we could skip the local channel news and sometimes a fake news was using satellite dishes. And having satellite dishes was banned back in Iran. Still it is banned, but people have access to internet and cable and other ways to kind of pass through that censored media. So having satellite dishes was one of the first opposition acts against the regime and the media to like get access to the other channels, to the international news. So I remember we have to install them on rooftops and camouflage them between the air conditioning units, or putting the fabric or something on top of them. So like the satellite dish became metaphor of censorship for me. So that object was something that creates the meaning that we are bypassing the censored news. And then later we had the radio jamming devices, and then in different specific times, like everything would get like pixelated, and the radio jams affected on the sound and vision. So that was the inspiration for me to start collecting the satellite dishes in Toronto and paint on them as my primary communication device. And then when I installed them, I tried to camouflage them. So as an example, I painted the pattern of a brick wall on them and then installed it on the brick wall in the Warley Gallery a few months ago. So at first you wouldn't notice the presence of that surveillance or communication device. So that's how I'm addressing the censorship, by using the concept of the camouflage. And when I install them in the public places, I would paint or mimic the pattern of the design and the architectural pattern that it's in that area. And I use the bigger one, which are used to receive the international channels. But for the concept of domestic spheres, I collect the smaller one, which are used to get the local channels, and then I paint the pattern of the fabric and the scarf, and then I install them on that object. I hope I have answered your question, and I have other question here. Okay. What is this like to get art? For some reason I cannot go down. Sorry guys. I have to figure out how to go to the next row. Okay, sorry. I find it. What is it like to get your art critiqued or reviewed? It's something actually very valuable for me, because I am an emerging artist, and I love to have a studio visit with curators and other artists, because I have one specific vision for sure, but when someone review my works and give me feedback or critique about my work, it's like getting out of my comfort zone and getting out of the box that I am working on. So it's really something very valuable that other people see your art and give you feedbacks or opinion from the different angles, and especially from different cultures. So as an example, specifically when I work with cultural materials and cultural inspiration, I may have a clear message to the people from my own community, but when I have other people see them different ways and they cannot connect to them, it is when I figure out, okay, so there's something maybe missing, or maybe I wanted to make it more readable for different audiences. So that's why I really appreciate the critics, and it's really helpful. And yeah, I'm always looking forward to have studio visits with like curators and other artists. And I have another question from Huya. When do you know when a painting or your creation is finished? What gives you that sense of completion of your work? Well, it's really hard to say. Let me just put it here again. When I'm working on the figurative paintings or like the portraitures, it's easier to figure out because I have some discipline and have some vision in mind, but I honestly don't follow like a pattern or a thumbnail usually. Sometimes I have a sketch, so whenever I finish my painting based on the like outline of my sketchbook or my doodle, I know it can be finished, but it's always the big concern for me because I don't like very realistic painting, and I like my paintings to be a little bit as the like impressionism in them. So sometimes I go back to a painting after a few years and I feel, oh, I want to work on it, or I want to add more colors. But when I paint miniatures, because it's like small illustration, right? So I know what I have in my head and I know that I cannot fix it later, so it's like a small like figures with like small like details, so it's easier to say when my miniature painting are finished or when I'm doing my illuminations and the Islamic design that I show you, such as I'll go back here so it wouldn't be so boring to just watching me. Let me see how I can, yes, again, sorry. So let me show you when I'm working on a smaller piece like this one. I have my pattern ready, so I know as long as I finish like coloring all the details or adding all of them, the painting is done. But when I'm working on the other pieces with this style, so you may think that the painting is not finished and like a drawing is like a messy and in the progress, but I like that sense of in progressness and unfinishedness. So actually I was told by some of my artist friends that, oh, you haven't finished it, I can still like see the blue background from here, or I can see your drawing on top of your painting, so it's not finished yet. But actually I like this sense of unfinishedness and ongoingness on it, so that's my style or my preference, but yeah, that's how I see them. So I guess we don't have any more questions, so I will wait another minute, and then if I don't have any more questions, I would say goodbye. And thanks everyone for joining me today, especially some of my friends from Iran. I know it should be 11 o'clock at night then. I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody can stay positive and in a good vibes until this pandemic is over, and then I can meet you in person in my next upcoming shows, hopefully not like maybe September or October, whenever this is over. So thank you everybody. I have to save this video, and I guess it would be posted on the Art Etobicoke account as I've requested. Thank you. It's good to see the familiar names here after a while. Like, I haven't seen so many of my friends for like a long time. Thank you, Mark. Of course, I appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Okay, bye everybody. Have a good day, and to you in Iran, have a good night. Thank you.